Here is a list of every turn-based combat game I've ever liked. Undertale, Persona 5, Divinity Original Sin, and now Into the Breach. To me, turn-based combat is just not what video games are about. Like, watch this. Now, watch this. Which one looks more fun? One of the few reasons I will probably ever like the actual combat in a turn-based combat game is if it has a unique, innovative, central game mechanic that it binds the whole gameplay around. Undertale with its turn-based / bullet time hybrid with an incredible story, Divinity with its highly interactable environment and also engrossing story, and now Into the Breach with the ability to move enemies where you want them to go. While yes, Persona 5 did not innovate, that's probably why I don't actually like the combat. I just love Persona 5 for practically everything else. But anyways, we were talking about Into the Breach. Being able to move enemies might not seem like a huge part of the game, but Into the Breach uses it so well and gives that mechanic so much depth that I absolutely adore it. It's a roguelike game, so each situation is randomly generated. But after you sink way too much time into the game, like I have, you'll start to realize that each situation is oddly familiar. But so far, every mission I've ever done is an interesting balance of appearing impossible, but having an elegant solution. The best way I can describe this game that will make someone want to play it is chess with mechs the size of mountains against super cockroaches called the Vec that have infested what remains of Earth. Yeeticus loves that. And, being a roguelike, it is very difficult for me to describe why you should play it, as everyone will have a different experience. So, instead, let me tell you all the story of me playing this game. Being the masochist that I am, I immediately set the difficult to hard, the maximum difficulty setting. And then I got my butt handed to me on a silver platter. Then I said, okay, maybe I should turn the difficulty down a bit. No one would ever notice anyways. So I set the game to normal, and then I got my butt handed to me on a silver platter. Then I was like, holy crap, I suck. Well, you know, there would be no shame in setting the difficulty down to easy. I mean, no one would be able to tell. So then I did that, and then I got my butt handed to me on a silver platter. It would be at this point that I would quit most other turn-based RPG games, but there was something about Into the Breach that just kept dragging me back in. I think it was the little details that really make Into the Breach worth playing. Really, it was the world of Into the Breach that kept dragging me back in. I genuinely wanted to save the world from the Vec. The way that everyone in the buildings exclaimed that they were saved as soon as I arrived made me want to, well, you know, actually save them. And the fact that every island has a leader that you interact with lends a huge sense of responsibility if you fail. In Into the Breach, you're the last hope for a dying world, and it was because of all this that I kept playing Into the Breach. Well, playing is the wrong word. You don't play Into the Breach, you conquer it. Not to say that Into the Breach isn't fun, it definitely is. Makes you feel like frickin' Einstein whenever you maneuver your way out of a seemingly impossible situation. Quick side note here, I've heard that in the game's code the AI always tries to give you a way to defeat them without taking any damage whatsoever, but I don't think there's been any confirmation at the time of recording, so take that with a grain of salt. And so eventually, I did conquer Into the Breach. I'm at the point now that with most of the squads, I can pretty consistently save the world. On normal difficulty. I'm not even close to truly beating this game, over 20 hours in. I still have a decent bit to learn. The graphics, as expected from the people who made FTL, are quite good for being pixelated, and the ending screens are genuinely beautiful. It feels like an adequate reward for all your hard work. As a side note, I love the fact that Into the Breach is a roguelike is justified by the story. Your squad of mechs comes from an alternate timeline where the Vec destroyed Earth, but humans invented the ability to travel through different timelines just before the extermination of the human race. So your pilot was sent to help other timelines that are being attacked by the Vec. Even if you do defeat the Vec in one timeline, there are infinite other timelines that need your help, and each timeline is slightly different than the other one, which is why each mission will play out slightly differently than the last. There are a few minor nitpicks that I could mention if I really wanted to, but I don't want to, because this game is an amazing experience and you should play it for yourself. By the way, if you want a detailed description of the mechanics, then you've come to the wrong series. Yeeticus, my inner 10-year-old, doesn't really understand what's happening, just what's cool and why it's so fun. Or you could just, play the game and find out the intricacies of combat for yourself. It's only $15 on Steam and available on the Switch for the same price. I'm not sponsored, I swear. Although this game unfortunately isn't for everyone. But not for the reason I would usually say if I ever review another turn-based game. Even if you dislike turn-based JRPG combat, this game still deserves your time, attention, and it definitely deserves your money. If you just want to beat the game once and then never play it again, that's fine, but it's not what Into the Breach is for. This game is meant for completionists. It's great, unique, but the best way to experience this game's uniqueness is to play it for yourself, which is why I didn't want to go too in depth. I give Into the Breach 1 BioWare going independent again out of me using another gosh dang outdated meme. Uh-oh, what's this? Looks like this is a bonus episode. I don't particularly feel like dedicating an entire video to this unique gem of a game, so I'm just gonna go ahead and bundle it together with Into the Breach, considering it's made by the same people. Although, the only clue that this game is made by the same people as Into the Breach is the art style. That very pixelated aesthetic is oddly familiar. So yeah, FTL Faster Than Light is what it's called. You're the captain of a starship fleeing the rebels on a desperate race across the galaxy to inform the Federation of the weakness of the rebel fleet. I'll just tell you all the rest because FTL isn't really about the ending, it's about getting there and the decisions you make along the way. So, the weakness of the rebel fleet is the rebel flagship, a massive behemoth of a ship that I've barely ever managed to beat. At the end of the game, you gotta get your ship that you've upgraded through a rather long run and your crew that you've built up over a journey across the galaxy, dig in your heels, and face the rebel flagship for yourself in one last all-or-nothing battle for the fate of the Federation. I do like that the rebels are the bad guys for once. Sometimes the underdogs are kind of pricks, and it's sort of funny to see someone acknowledging it. So, that's the bare bones of the story. Pretty much all the good bits are before you reach the final battle. The encounters you have along the way are the compelling parts of FTL. I gotta say though, most of the story and what's happening is brought across by text. I don't have a problem with that, but even if something really interesting is happening, the only way to convey that is through flavor text. Don't get me wrong, the text is incredibly interesting, and sometimes I really did feel bad because I had to make the wrong choice to survive. Just some people are uncultured and hate reading, so I thought I'd mention it. Anyways, at the start, you got a ship held together by duct tape and prayers, and you've got to turn it into something fit for battle. To do that, you need scrap. You use scrap to upgrade the various systems of your ship, which give you various bonuses. You get scrap by killing ships, doing quests, and various other events around the galaxy. FTL is a roguelike, which means each scenario is randomly generated. By that I mean the outcome and where you encounter them is random, but the encounters themselves remain the same. So sometimes you'll be half an hour into a crappy run surviving off the skin of your teeth because you haven't gotten the scrap to upgrade your ship, and then you get absolutely demolished by the enemy generation. This is a tough, brutal, unforgiving game. Sometimes the best way to get scrap is to destroy surrendering ships. Sometimes you'll need to make a choice about who's gonna die and who to side with, and it's genuinely interesting. Sure, you might save a civilian from destruction by killing the pirate that was attacking it, but the civilian ship might jump away before it can reward you, and the pirate ship might bring you to the brink of death, ruining the rest of your run. Sometimes you'll have to sacrifice your morals for the greater good of the Federation, or die a horrible, fiery death. Look, everyone says this, but it's really true. If you've ever wanted to be Captain Kirk or Jean-Luc Picard, this is the closest you'll ever get. Managing your starship and its crew is incredibly absorbing. There's also a bunch of unique races, like any good sci-fi game, with a distinct identity that comes out in gameplay, which I love. For example, the Mantis get a bonus in combat. The Rock has more health and immunity to fire, but decreased movement speed. Okay, gameplay now. It's not technically turn-based, but it's got a pause feature which you can use at any time, and every weapon operates on a cooldown, so it is sort of an odd turn-based hybrid, I suppose. The gameplay boils down to targeting the different systems on an enemy ship to destroy that ship before it can destroy you. You have to use your weapons to strategically target the enemy ship systems, while using your own abilities to avoid damage yourself. This will lead to people that like to have maximum efficiency, and just like targeting the essential systems, weapons and shields, or psychopaths like me. What I personally like to do is leave one crew member alive in a crippled husk of a ship and try to guess what'll kill him first, the fire or the lack of oxygen. Then, once he's dead, I'll strip his ship down for scrap. But if you persevere through missing every shot exactly when you need to hit it, the enemy generation dying in the very last sector, the gosh dang enemy generation, you'll find intuitive, tactical, buzzwords gameplay, and an utterly unique, well-realized world for the enemy generation to screw you over in. The soundtrack is also great. I don't know, just listen to it for a second. See? Great. Much like Into the Breach, there is so much diversity in the combat that without making this video 2 hours long, it would be impossible for me to really go in depth about the staggering amount of options you have. And going into anything more than the bare bones of the story is kind of impossible too, because everyone will have a different experience almost every time they play it. Sometimes you might have the God Run where you plow through every sector then get whipped by the flagship. Sometimes you might hit the one type of ship your ship can't deal with on the very first enemy and have to restart or die an embarrassing death. Suffice it to say, there are lots of interesting encounters, so much so that 92 hours in I still occasionally find new stuff. And I still haven't managed to unlock all the different ships. Yeah, I know I suck. So, to finish this video off, I'm gonna give a quick guide to stuff I wish I knew when I first started playing that's vastly inferior to all the other player-made guides already available. In my opinion, cloaking and crew teleporter are the two most effective systems you can add to your ship. Usually with cloaking, you'll want to see when the enemy is shooting and activate the cloak when the missiles or whatever are on their way towards your ship. Probably don't upgrade the cloak past level 2, as it's more important to be able to use the cloak more often to dodge more damage than it is to stay in cloak longer. Crew teleporter is self-explanatory. You teleport your crew onto enemy ship. If you have firebombs and rock crew, since the rock are immune to fire, just make the enemy ship burn baby burn, disco inferno, and slaughter everyone in sight. Not very ethical, but last I checked, the Geneva Convention doesn't apply in space. Also, make sure you teleport your crew back to your ship before leaving the sector. The crew don't teleport back to your ship automatically, and not realizing that, it ruined one of my earlier runs. I'm sure the community will disagree with me on this, but I actually despise the drone control. I have never gotten one of them to work on a run, no matter what I tried. I'm sure there's a guide that can explain what I'm doing wrong, but I like cloaking and crew teleporter much better anyways. Seriously, it's great. Sometimes I get so into this game that I actually start screaming at the sprites of my crew to repair faster. I get way too into it. Although, I gotta say, if being screwed over by the RNG will piss you off, then be careful. FTL might make you smash your keyboard. But, other than the RNG being a semi-serious annoyance, this game is absolutely worth your time. It's $10 and takes up like 200 megabytes in your hard drive. What do you got to lose? Signing off, Captain Yeeticus of the Starship Enterprise.